Hello, I'm Trevor Alonso. Well, it's Christmas time. So it's time to watch one of the best Christmas movies of all time. I'm reviewing Die Hard. This is totally a Christmas movie. It may not be a traditional Christmas movie, but still a Christmas movie. Based on the book Nothing Lasts Forever by Roderick Thorpe, which was a sequel to another book, The Detective, which was made into a movie starring Frank Sinatra. So when the movie was being made, they had to legally offer the movie to Sinatra first, even though he was in his 70s. He turned it down, so the search for a lead in this action film started. Arnold Schwarzenegger was offered, which led to a myth that Die Hard was going to be a sequel to Commando. Then Sylvester Stallone. At one point Harrison Ford. Burt Reynolds turned it down. Don Johnson said no. Richard Gere didn't want it. So who would they pick at this point? They casted Bruce Willis. At that time he was known for the comedy drama Moonlighting, and also for this. They had no faith in him carrying the movie. Director John McTiernan of Predator fame was set to direct. With all that being said, let's take a look at Die Hard. We start off meeting John McClane on a plane. We see he hates flying. The guy sitting next to him notices and tells him this.
Surviving air travel? After you get where you're going, take off your shoes and your socks. Then you walk around on the rug barefoot and make fists with your toes.
Fists with your toes.
I know, it sounds crazy. Trust me, I've been doing it for 9 years.
We find out John is a cop of 11 years.
Okay, I'm a cop.
And carries a teddy bear for his kids. Now, when I saw this as a kid, I thought he carried the bear because it helped his fear of flying. Just think of it that way, and it kind of works in the movie. Ah, yes. Back when you could smoke in the airport. We see Holly is at an office, checking on the kids who are with a maid.
California.
John acts like this only happens in LA airports. I'm sure it happens everywhere else. We meet Argyle, the limo driver. It turns out it's the first time for both of them driving and riding in a limo. We also find out what happened to John and Holly before the movie.
Well, your lady live out here?
About the past 6 months.
Meaning you still live in New York?
You always ask so many questions, Argyle.
Sorry, man. I used to drive a cab, and people would expect a little chit-chat. So you divorced?
Just drive the car, man.
Hey, come on. You divorced? You separated? She beat you up?
She had a good job. Turned into a great career.
Now that meant she had to move here.
You're very fast, Argyle.
So why didn't you come? Well, why'd you come with her, man? What's up?
Because I'm a New York cop. I got a 6-month backlog, and New York scumbags I'm still trying to put behind bars. I can't just pick up and go that easy.
In other words, you thought she wasn't gonna make it out here, and she'd come crawling on back to you. So why bother to pack, right?
Like I said, you're very fast, Argyle.
The Nakatomi building was actually a new building at Fox at the time. They still had to pay a fee to use the building, so Fox basically gave the check to themselves.
I'm here to see Holly McClane.
Just type it in there.
John looks for Holly on the computer.
Cute toy.
Ha! This is what 1988 thought touchscreens would look like. John walks up to the Christmas party.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey! Merry Christmas!
Dude, it's like 6 or 7 and he's already drunk. John meets Holly's boss, Mr. Takagi, who introduces him to Alice, who is obviously doing coke in Holly's office. John sees Holly, and they have a moment.
Show him the watch.
Later.
Well, go on, show him. What are you, embarrassed? It's just a small token of appreciation for all our hard work. It's a Rolex.
I'm sure I'll see you later.
John and Holly are talking about where their relationship is at that point. John is upset Holly is using her maiden name.
Mr. Nero,
Holly's boss calls for her to give a speech. The terrorists drive up at the same time. They distract a guard with basketball talk.
Right?
The other is taken out with the use of a flashbang, while the others walk in already. Clarence Gilliard from Walker, Texas Ranger makes sure the building is being locked shut, and breaks the computers. This is not the worst choice I made today, John. He cuts these power lines with a chainsaw and doesn't get shocked. How does that happen? John notices the phone lines are cut. The terrorists crash the party. John grabs his gun and makes a quick run for the stairs while they are distracted. We meet one of the best action movie villains, Hans Gruber, played by the late Alan Rickman. This is also his first role in a movie.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hans has notes for his speech.
The legacy of greed around the globe. They are about to be taught a lesson in the real use of power. You will be witnesses.
And for whatever reason, he doesn't keep reading them.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Hans takes Takagi away from the party. Hans ogles the models in the room. Hans reveals his plans with Takagi, that they want the bonds in the vault. Hans kills Takagi for not giving him the codes. John makes a run for it as the terrorists hear him.
Argyle, tell me you heard the shots. You're calling the police right now.
He heard nothing. Theo explains how to get in the vault. John sets off the alarm. The terrorists see the alarm going off. John is glad to see the cops coming, and then sees them drive off. One terrorist shows up to see who set off the alarm. John pulls a gun on him. They now get into a fight. During the roll down the stairs, the bad guy's neck snaps. John takes his gear and tries to take his shoes.
Remember, we have left nothing to chance.
John sends the terrorist a Christmas card. John writes down names as he hears them. Really, John? Carl is mad about his brother. Ellis thinks John will get everyone killed. John radios for help on the roof.
Send the police now!
Do they hear the gunshots over the radio? Carl! we meet Al, played by Reginald Vell Johnson. Yes, he has played a cop in other movies. The gunfight continues. John makes a run for it. He manages to stop a fan to slide through. Again, John? Aren't you trying to save your wife? This shot of Bruce Willis trying to go down the elevator shaft and misses was actually a mistake, but the director thought it added to the tension, so they kept it in.
Come out to the coast. We'll get together. Have a few laughs.
The bad guys check the air ducts. They miss him and move on. Wait, did his shirt get dirtier? Al shows up, only to find nothing. John is able to stop the bad guy, only for another to show up. He shoots him. The other bad guy chases him over a table.
Next time you have a chance to kill someone, don't hesitate.
Why did I give him good advice? John throws the dead body out the window to get attention and fires at the car.
Welcome to the party, pal!
The jerk from the Ghostbusters shows up. It seems like he always plays a jerk in the 80s. John radios Hans and tells him some info he knows.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Best one-liner in the movie. The principal from the Breakfast Club shows up and is in charge. Al tells him the info he knows, and the local news shows up. Holly talks to Hans to get better treatment for the hostages.
Mr. Takagi chose his people well, Mrs.
Gennaro. Miss Gennaro.
Holly says her name as she is next to the door, with her name on it. As the news comes on, Argyle finds out what's going on. SWAT gets ready to go in. John figures out that they are about to enter. The bad guys get ready for them. Holding people hostage and need a snack break? Eat a Crunch Bar. Also, this guy is played by Al Leong. You might know him as a bad guy in multiple 80s action movies. Well, pretty much all of them. The bad guys take out the lights. They also start shooting at the SWAT team trying to come in. The police send in a tank to breach the building. The bad guys get the rockets ready to blow up the tank. Now this is what happens when you get your rockets from IKEA. Hans orders to fire again. John tries to stop them. John decides to use all the C4 he took and send it down the elevator shaft, hoping it hits them. They're gonna feel that in the morning.
We've had an update on the terrorist takeover of the Nakatomi building. Sources say the terrorist leader Hans may be this man, Hans Gruber, a member of the radical West German Volksfrei movement. Strangely, the Volksfrei leadership issued a communique an hour ago stating that Gruber had been expelled from that organization.
John radios the police and tells them he is sure he took out 2 more bad guys with that blast. Also, Argyle is listening to everything now. Alice does more coke and demands to talk to Hans. He says he can give them John. Alice is so unlikable, even Hans looks like he hates him. John and Al talk about Twinkies and family. Hans interrupts and says he has someone that's close to John. John worries it's Holly, but it's Alice. He told Hans they are old friends and invited him to the party. He tells John to turn himself in and hand over the detonators. John warns Alice. Alice doesn't listen and does more coke. Hans then kills Alice. Hans tells John he will keep killing hostages until he gets the detonators. Al and Robinson argue over what McClane just did. Hans radios the police to give them bullcrap demands. The news talks about what hostages go through. The FBI shows up to take charge. John finds him. Hans gives his best American accent.
Please, God, no, you're one of them, aren't you? You're one of them.
Or what he thinks we sound like. They start to talk and smoke. John tells him he is a cop. Hans sees he has no shoes on. John hands him a gun. Hans turns on him. John questions Hans about the detonators. Hans finds out the gun he was handed was unloaded the whole time. More bad guys show up as they get into a gunfight. John ends up killing 2 more. Hans remembers, oh yeah, he's barefoot, and orders to shoot the glass. John is cornered in a gunfight. He sees an exit, then sees a glass, but remembers he's barefoot. Holly believes John is alive, thinking only John can make somebody that mad.
He's still alive.
John pulls glass out of his feet, and thinks, why did I listen to that guy on the plane? John talks to Al, and we find out why Al is behind a desk.
I shot a kid. He was 13 years old. Oh, it was dark. I couldn't see him. He had a ray gun look real enough.
Did I do that?
Hans was waiting for the FBI to cut the power. The FBI cuts the power, thinking they can sweat them out. Meanwhile, woo yeah, woo yeah, woo yeah, woo yeah, we're getting what we want, yeah, Merry Christmas! John believes he may not make it. He tells Al that afterwards to tell his wife he loves her. Al reassures him he will make it out. John still wonders what was on the roof. The news is trying to interview the McClane kids. John checks out what Hans was up to on the roof. He finds the roof is set to blow. John tries to warn Al, but then Carl finds him. Carl and John get into a big fight. With helicopters coming, Hans orders Holly to start moving everyone. But the news comes on with the McClane kids. Hans puts 2 and 2 together and realizes Holly is John's wife. John is still getting kicked around. The FBI readies to fire. The hostages are being moved to the roof. John and Carl are still fighting.
Just a flesh wound.
Holly sees that Hans is just a thief. John finishes his fight with Carl. John kills another bad guy. John asks where Holly is, then tells everyone to run downstairs. When no one listens, John starts shooting in the air. The FBI thinks John is shooting at the hostages, so the FBI shoots at John. John uses a fire hose to jump off the roof. Hans orders to blow the roof. John jumps as the roof is being blown. This is one of the greatest explosions in action movie history. They use practical effects. This is better than CGI explosions in other movies. Not to say CGI is completely bad, just the ones you can clearly see are fake. John makes it, but nearly gets pulled out. While John is looking around, the building is still blowing up. Argyle notices a van coming out of another van. Wait, they all drove up there, in the back, crammed in with a full-size van? John sees Hans has Holly. He tries to come up with a plan. Argyle sees the van moving and stops it. John takes out another bad guy by knocking him out. They talk about what this was all about.
Why'd you have to nuke the whole building, Hans?
Well, when you steal $600, you can't just disappear. When you steal 600 million, they will find you unless they think you're already dead.
Hans has John drop the gun. John drops it to Holly's surprise.
What was it you said to me before? Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
This laugh seems to go on forever. John has a gun taped to his back. He pulls it. Hans falls out the window, but grabs Holly's watch. Even in death, Ellis puts Holly in danger. John takes the watch off in time. I heard the reason Alan Rickman looks scared is because they told him they would drop him on 3, but they counted to 1. Oh, John, I love you, but you're so bloody. Everything becomes so peaceful with all the bad guys now dead. Aw, instant bromance. Al is the best supporting character in an action movie.
Al is my wife, Holly. Holly Gennaro.
Holly McClane.
Holly takes back the McClane name. Carl's alive! No, Carl with a K. Al was able to get over trauma and pull his gun again. Also, who moved Carl's body thinking he was dead with his gun next to him? Also, when John killed him, his gun was even next to him. Okay, now Al seems a little trigger happy.
Now that it's all over after this incredible ordeal, what are your feelings?
Holly punches the news jerk. Good job, Holly. Argyle takes the McClanes home. I am more than sure he earned his tip tonight. Die Hard is one of the best action movies ever made. It has also been considered one of the best made movies. This movie is well acted, the filming is done well, the fight scenes are great, it's not special skills fighting, it's blunt force fighting that fits here. I think this is one of Bruce Willis's best movies. This made him a movie star. The late Alan Rickman set the bar for movie villains. Not bad for his first movie. This set so many new standards for action movies. One of which is having an everyman type instead of a big muscle action hero type. It also started the Die Hard in a or Die Hard on a blank movie, meaning one man up against a group of bad guys in a space or area. Or at least that's how I define it. This is a Christmas movie to me, and a lot of other people agree. John McClane goes through a character change in the movie. He realizes he should have treated Holly better. John and Holly are brought closer together as a family. So much Christmas stuff happens throughout the movie. It's a miracle that most of the hostages make it. If you took Christmas completely out of the movie, it wouldn't work the same at all. But if you don't think it's a Christmas movie, that's fine too. And the great part about it is you can watch it any time of the year and not feel like, oh, this is just a Christmas movie. Because I do agree it's an action movie as well. I do feel this is the best movie in the series. They did make 4 sequels. They all did well. Some are better than others. They do have one in the works coming out in a few years. But for this one, I'll give it a 10 Nakatomi buildings out of 10. Thank you for watching my video.